Alright, so we are going to clone a starter file from our GitHub repo. We will copy this URL and then move back to VS Code and type the following command. So we have git clone followed by the URL that we just copied and followed by a period. So this period is going to indicate that we want to install all the files and folders inside this directory. So I'll hit on enter to get it cloned. Alright, so we have the repo cloned and this is the starter file for this project. So over here we have the blog page, which will be having this as our content, and the content include the title, the published art, and the summary. So there is nothing crazy going on here. This is completely different thing from what you will be learning today. So maybe in the future I'll create an extensive tutorials on MDS. We have the public directory which contains the image for the brand and all the other assets for this project. Moving to the SRC folder, we have the app and lib folders inside the SRC. And inside the app folder, we have the layout page and also the home page for this project. So I'll get back to this layout page in a second and explain what is going on over here. But before that, let's run or install all the packages that will be required for this project. So we head back to the terminal and write and type the following command: npm install. So we have all the packages installed as we can see over here, and we have this page which contains just the test homepage. Later on, we are going to build everything that will be required for this project. And we have the lib folder which contains a utility files for the Magic UI to work. In a nutshell, Magic UI is a free and open source animated component library built with React, TypeScript, TailwindCSS, and Framer Motion. So these utility functions will be needed to make it work fine. Inside this file, we have a function called cn that will help us merge classes, and then we have a format date function which is going to help us format date. So that's all we have in here. And we also have a component.json file here, which is a required file for Magic UI to work. So we'll be using this to install some of the UI components from Magic UI. So this works very similar to Shadcn. And finally, we have the package.json file, which contains all the dependencies that we will be needing for this project. So we've already installed this, and I think that will be it for the starter file. So back to the layout page. So we have this cn function that we are importing from the utility functions, and we have metadata imported from Next. So we are going to use this metadata to define our site metadata. And we have font. We are importing inter as font sans. So this is to make it easier to use in our code. And we have the global CSS imported as well. Then we configure the inter font, specifying options like the subset and also giving it a custom CSS variable. So the variable name is font sans. And we have the root layout here, which represents any content that will be nested inside this layout, so such as the pages or the component. And this is also going to render the content passed into this root layout, such as the pages and the component. So we are going to create a data directory and create a new file that is going to contain all the data for this project. Then we create the metadata inside this layout page. So inside the SRC directory, we create a new folder named data and create this file, resume.tsx. So this is going to contain all the data for this project. So this is going to contain all the data we have on the website, everything about the user. So when we check the complete website, we have the information like the name, the about of the developer, the work experience. We have the education here, the skills, the projects, and the hackathons. So all these are the data that we'll be needing. So we head back to the resume page, and then we are going to start by importing this icon from Lucid React. So Lucid React is a library or a package that have numerous icons that you can use in your project. So you can check it out on lucid.dev/icons. So we import the home icon and the notebook icon. From Lucid React. So we have these icons imported. Next, we are going to import an icon component. So we'll be needing this icon component to render most of the icons for this project. So back in the SRC folder, we create a new directory called component. And inside the component directory, we are going to create a new folder named UI and create the icon.tsx. So this is going to be our icon component. Inside this component directory, we are going to have a couple of folders that we'll be adding later on in this project. This code defines an icons object containing various SVG icons for different services like GitHub, LinkedIn, and Next.js. So I'll paste it over here since most of these are SVGs. And over here we have these two icons imported from Lucid React, the global icon and the mail icon. And we define our icon props to be an HTML attribute SVG element. And then we export everything like the globe icon, the email icon. We have the LinkedIn icon here, X icon, YouTube icon, and so on. And so many icons that we'll be having in this project. So we give that a save and move back to the resume.tsx page. So we are going to import the icons component. I'll paste all the data over here. They are quite lengthy and can't be typed out from the scratch. So we have exported the data which contains the name, John Doe, and the initials, URL locations. It have the skills of the developer, the navbar, the contact, and the work or the companies they have worked for in an array of objects. And when we scroll down, we have education, we have the projects, we have the hackathon sections over here, and literally everything that we'll be needing for this project. So when we have everything exported as a data, it makes it easier to work with. So all the data and information about the developer are being stored in this data object. So it's a nice pattern that you can copy or adapt in your project. So we have that over here, and we give this a save. So we'll move back to the layout page and import all the metadata. So since we have our data created, we can just import it as import data from data/resume. So we have all our data here, and beneath the font sans object, so we can create and set up our metadata of our application over here. So one may ask, what is the uses of this metadata? So they help search engines and social networks to understand our site for better search engine optimization. So we export a constant of a type metadata. So inside this object, we are going to create a base URL for our metadata. So this is going to be derived from our resume data. So we create a metadata base, which we are getting from a new URL, data.url. So when we check the resume page, we have the URL object just right over here. Then we have the title, which is going to have a default title for our pages and also a template that will allow us to customize titles for different pages. So we have default, which is going to be data.name, and we have a template title, which is going to be this. We add a description. So we can get that from data.description. So when we check the resume, we have the description over here. And we have open graph. So this open graph is going to contain a title that will appear when our site is shared on social media, a description that will appear on social media, a URL, and a site name. So we have the title to be data.name. We have a description, which is going to come from data.description. We have the URL, which is coming from data.url. We also have a site name, which we are getting from data.name. So we copy this and paste it over here. And we have the locale, which is going to indicate the language that we'll be using for this project. So we have English, the US English, and we have a type of website. So we move to the robot. So this section is all about telling search engines to index our website so that it can appear in the search results. So we have index to be true, meaning we want this site to be indexed. And we have follow to be true. So this property tells the search engines to follow the links on our website. And we have Googlebot object, which we are going to have an index of true, a follow of true, and we have a mass video preview of -1. So this is going to allow Google to display video preview for our website. And we have mass image preview. We set that to large. And then we have the mass snippet to -1, which is also going to allow Google to display the full text snippets from our website in the search results. And we have Twitter. We have a title here, which is going to be the data.name. We have a card, which is going to be summary large image. So this is for Twitter to display the title of our website when shared on Twitter. And the card property also specifies that Twitter should use a large image preview when sharing our website. So we have that. And then the final object that we are going to create is going to be verification. So we create a Google verification and we create a Yandex verification object. So this is a placeholder for Google Sites verification code, and this is also a placeholder for Yandex site verification code. So we have that. I think everything is looking great. Alright, so over here, I think we have to run this code to see what you have on the screen before we continue to add any other thing to this project. So we run the following command: npm run dev, and this project is starting on localhost port 3000. We move back to our browser and search for localhost port 3000. So we have home page as expected, because when we move back to the page TypeScript page, we just have this test as home page, right? So everything is working fine. Let's continue building this project. So in this layout page, we are going to have a theme provider, which is going to wrap our app and enable theme switching, like switching to dark mode and back to light mode. So this is what I'm trying to explain. When I click on this, we have the whole theme change. So we have to create a provider for that. So inside the root directory of the component, we are going to create a new file named theme provider.tsx. So this is going to be our theme provider. And we are going to start by writing this over here, use client. So this directive tells Next.js that the following code is a client-side code. And we are going to import a theme provider from Next theme. So we have import theme provider as Next themes provider from Next themes. And we are also going to import the theme provider props from the Next themes library. So import theme provider props from the Next themes. So this type is used to ensure that the props we pass in our theme provider component match the expected structure by the Next themes. So now we are going to define the theme provider component, which is going to accept a children and any other props that might be passed to it. So the children props represent the components or elements that will be wrapped around this provider. So we have export function theme provider, which have the children and any other props that will be passed to this provider, extending the theme provider props. Inside this theme provider, we are going to use Next provider from Next themes to handle the actual theme management. So we spread any props we receive into the Next theme provider to ensure that they are passed down correctly. So we have return Next theme provider. We spread the props. We have the children, and that will be it for the theme provider. So we move back to the layout and call the theme provider to wrap around all the children elements. So we are going to have an attribute of class. This is just to help us toggle between the dark mode and also the light mode. And we have the default theme to be light. So we have that. And the next thing we are going to create is what we call the tooltip provider, which is going to wrap the content to manage tooltips. So this is what I'm talking about. When we hover over these icons here, we have a tooltip that says home. We have blog, we have GitHub, and so on and so forth. So these are the tooltips that we want to wrap around the children component for this project. So to create the tooltip provider, we are going to create a new file inside this UI folder named tooltip.tsx. So we have tooltip.tsx. And over here, we are going to have use client because we want to execute this code on the client side. So we are going to import everything from Radix UI React tooltip. So we have import a star as tooltip primitive from Radix UI React tooltip. So this library provides a low-level component for building tooltips, which can be customized and extend. Then we import everything from React. Then we import Cn from the utils component from the utils functions. So this is going to help us to concatenate class names conditionally. And then we create a tooltip provider by assigning a tooltip primitive.provider to it. So we have a const tooltip provider, which is going to have a tooltip primitive.provider assigned to it. So this provider will wrap parts of our app where we want to use the tooltip and handle their context and behavior. And we have a constant tooltip equals tooltip primitive.root. So this is the root component for the tooltip. It defines the structure of the tooltip and how it behaves. And then we have a constant for tooltip trigger, which is going to be tooltip primitive.trigger. So we have tooltip trigger, which is going to be assigned to the tooltip primitive.trigger. So this is the component that triggers the tooltip to appear. So now we are going to define our tooltip content, which is going to be a customized version of the tooltip primitive.content. So I'll copy that and paste it over here and explain what we have here. So we have our tooltip content pasted over here, and let's go over the code step by step. So over here, we are using the react.forwardRef to forward the ref to the underlying DOM element. So this allows the parent component to interact directly with the DOM element. And we have the tooltip primitive.content here. We pass the ref down to the actual tooltip element. And we have the side offset, which determines how far a tooltip is from the element that triggered it. So we default this value to 4. That's what we have over here. And here we apply a bunch of CSS classes to style the tooltip. So the cn function that we imported over here help us to conditionally add class names. And then we spread the rest of the props onto the tooltip content element. And after defining the component, we set the display name to the name of the component it's wrapping. So this is going to help us with debugging. And finally, we export the components we've created so that we can use them in other parts of this application. So we move back to the layout and import the tooltip provider. So right after the theme provider, we are going to have the tooltip provider. So we pass in these props, which is going to be delay duration to be 0. So we give this a save and move back to localhost port 3000 to see if we haven't break anything yet. Alright, so I think everything is good. We haven't break anything yet. So next, we are going to create the navbar and import it over here. So when we look at the navbar for this project, it's a dock like Mac OS or Windows OS, which is pinned beneath the page. So when we scroll, we don't lose the position. It's stuck to the bottom here, and this looks cool. This is very cool. We have the home, we have the blog, the GitHub, LinkedIn, X, YouTube, and a switch to toggle between light and dark mode. So we are going to use Magic UI to create this dock. So when we head back to the Magic UI website, when we scroll down a little bit, we can browse component and look for a dock. So we click on a dock, and we can notice this is exactly the same as what we have in the complete project. So Magic UI is going to help us install and set up this dock, and then we customize it to look exactly like this one over here. So when we scroll down, it shows us the installation procedure. We can install by using the command line interface or go in for the manual option. But since we have the component.json file, this file here, we are able to install it in the command line. So I will click on CLI and copy this code here, npm, move back to Visual Studio Code, and paste it over here. So this is going to install the dock for us that will be used for the navigation for this project. So we wait for some few seconds, and there we go, we have the dock file installed. So we can see there is a new directory here named Magic UI. When I click on that, we have our dock, which contains everything that we'll be needing for the dock or the navigation for this project. So if you followed the installation steps, you should have this Docker file here inside the Magic UI folder. So now that we have our Docker installed, we are going to create the navbar component. So inside the component folder, we create a new file named navbar.tsx. So before we import the Docker and start writing everything for this navbar component, let's take a notice of something here. The navbar does not only contains this icon, but it has a separator. Let me turn it back to light mode. So we have this separator here. From between the home and the blog nav, we have a separator. We have the social icons followed by a separator, and then we have this toggle icon here to toggle between light and dark mode. So what we are going to do now is to create this component. So we are going to create a mode toggle component, a button component, and a separator component before we import the dock and start writing the navbar component. So let's start by creating the mode toggle. So we create a new file inside the component directory named mode toggle.tsx. So over here, we are going to import use client because this is going to run in the client side, and we need a button here. So remember, I said we are going to create a mode toggle component, a separator, and a button. So since we need a button here, let's go ahead and create the button and move back to the mode toggle page and continue with this component. So inside the UI folder, let's create a new file named button.tsx. This is going to be a straightforward and a simple component. So we are going to import slot from Redis UI. React slot. So the slot component is used to allow the button component to accept another component as a child, maintaining the correct context and styling. So from that, we are going to import CVA, then we import a type of variant props from class variant authority. So the CVA is used to create a set of class based on a variant, so like button styles and sizes, right? And then we have the variant props, which is a TypeScript utility that is going to help us type the props based on the variant defined in the CVA. So we import everything from React. And then import CN. So we define the button styles and sizes using the CVA function. So we create a constant button variant equals CVA. And we have this long CSS classes here, which I'm going to paste over here. All right, so we have an object, and the object is having a variant. Which is also an object, and we have a variant. So we have variants and variant. And this is going to accept properties, right? So we are going to have a default styles for a button. We have a destructive, outline, secondary, ghost, and also a link. So we start by creating the default, which I'm going to copy the class as well and paste it over here. So this is going to be the default styles for this button. And we have destructive, I'll copy that. In fact, let's copy all the properties and paste them over here. Alright, so we have all our variants created. So we move to size for the button. We create a size for the button. And the default is going to be H9 PX4 PY2, and we have SM, which is going to be H8. We have rounded MD PX3 test small, extra small, and we have a large size, which is going to have a height of 10, rounded MD PX8. Then we have an icon, which is having a height of 9, a width of 9, and a rounded of full. So we have these to be our sizes, and then we create a default variant. So we have the variant to be default and the size to be default. So this is going to be the default sizes and properties for the button if you don't specify any. So we are done creating the button variant. Let's move on to create the interface for the button and then the actual component for the button. So we are going to export interface button props. Which we are going to extend from react.button HTML attribute, which is an HTML button element. And then we have our variant props, which is going to be type of button variant. And we have as child, we have boolean. So this props is going to allow the button to act as a wrapper for another component. So like a link, right? And then we define our button. So we create a constant, we have button here. So we have React forward ref dot forward ref, which is going to be HTML button element. Then we have the button props. So we are going to pass in the class name, the variant, the size, and we set as child to false and spread the props with the ref. So over here, we are going to create a constant called comp, which is going to have as child, it's going to be a condition. So what this variable is doing over here is to check if as child is true, then we use the slot component, otherwise we want to use the regular button element. Then we return the comp and we have a class name cn. We have button variant, which is going to have the variant, the size, and also the class name. So this is supposed to be variant and not variant. So let's add X. And there we go, we have it. So same thing applies to this side. We add S. And there we go. So we pass the ref to the component. And then we spread the props. So this props is going to be responsible for the remaining props. So like the onClick, the type, and any other props onto the component. Then we set the display name of the button component for a better debugging and developer experience. So we have button.display name equals button. Then we export button and button variants. Alright, so we have our button component created. So let's move back to the mood toggle component and import the button. So we import the button and then we are going to import the moon icon and the sun icon from Radix UI React icon. So we import moon icon and sun icon. Radix UI React icons. And so these icons are going to represent the moon for dark mode and also the sun for light mode. And we are going to import use theme, which is the hook that we are getting from the Next theme library. So this is going to provide access to the current theme, either light or dark, and allow us to change it. So we export the function mood toggle and here we are going to use the use theme hook to get the current theme and set theme function to change the theme. So we have const theme and set theme, which is use theme. From this use theme hook, and we are returning the button. So we have to provide the following. So we have a variant. We want a variant of ghost for this particular link. And then we have a type of button. We want the size to be a size of an icon. We have the class name px to be 2. And then we have an onClick event, which is going to set the theme to dark or light mode. So we have a theme. If the theme is equal to dark, we want to set it to light, and vice versa. So we have that. And we are going to create the sun icon and the moon icon to be rendered based on the theme. So we have the sun icon. We provide the following class names. We have h 1.2 rem. We have width 1.2 rem. We have text neutral 800, and we have a dark. So on a dark theme, you want to hide this, and on a dark theme, you want to give this text a neutral 200. So we repeat same for the moon icon. Copy and paste that and replace this with the moon icon. So the only thing we are going to change is, make this a heading. So the text is supposed to be neutral 800 on a light mode. And we have the text itself to be 200 on a dark mode. So we have these properties set. Alright, so the mood toggle function is done. Right, so we have the mood toggle function, we have our button, and the final piece we are going to create before we move back to the navbar is going to be the separator component. So inside the UI, we are going to create a new file named separator.tsx. So we import use client and import everything from React. Then we import everything from separator primitive from the Redis UI React separator package, right? So we have separator primitive from the Redis UI separator. So we have that, and we are going to import cn from the utility functions, which is a function that is going to conditionally concatenate class names. So we use the React forward ref to create the component that can forward its ref to the underlying DOM element. So we are going to create the separator component. Using the React.forwardRef, we will be able to create a component that can forward its ref to the underlying DOM element. So we have React ref, and then we have React.elementRef. I'm going to be type of separator primitive.root, and we have React.component props without ref. So we have that type of. We have separator primitive.root. So we are going to have this parenthesis, and we are going to, so we are going to distract props with default values from orientation and decorative. So we have class name, we have orientation to be horizontal. For the separator, so we have a vertical separator and a horizontal separator, and we set the decorative to true and spread any other props that we'll be getting for this component. And we have the ref. So this ref is passed in as an argument to forward ref. So once we have that, we can call the separator primitive.root and pass ref. You have decorative, which is going to be decorative. We have orientation to be orientation. So this orientation controls whether the separator is going to be a horizontal or vertical. Then we provide the following class names. So what this class name is doing here is we have shrink 0 bg border, which is going to be the base style. So we have shrink 0 to prevent the separator from shrinking, and bg border to set the background color to match the border color. And we have this orientation here, which is a conditional styling based on orientation. So horizontal separator gets full width and 1 px height, whilst the vertical separator gets full height and 1 ps width. So we have the class name here, which is going to append any additional classes passed down to these props to this component. Then finally, we spread the props. So we are going to set the display name to separator component for better debugging, and then we finally export the separator. So we have separator dot display name, which is going to be separator primitive dot root dot display name. So we have that, and finally we are going to export separator. So we have everything that we need to create the navbar. So we have the separator, we have the button, we have the mood toggle. So now let's move back to the navbar and continue writing the code. So we are going to start by importing a dock and a dock icon. So we have the dock, and also we have the dock icon. So over here, we are going to import all that we've created. So we are going to import a mode toggle. From the mode toggle, we are going to import the button variant from the UI button. We are going to import separator. From the UI separator. So when a user hover on this nav here, we have the tooltip, right? So we are going to import that as well. So we are going to import tooltip. We already have that in the tooltip component, the one we created, this one over here. And we have the tooltip content. We have the tooltip trigger. So that is going to be all that we need from the tooltip. And we are also going to import the data from resume. So we have data from data resume. And we are going to import the cn from the libs.utility function and import link from React. So once we have that, we can export default a function that is going to contain everything for the navbar. So we have default export function and we are going to return the component. So we are going to have a div that is going to serve as a container for the entire navbar, positioning it fixed at the bottom of the screen. So I'll copy that and also copy one more div. Alright, so we have the containers imported here. So all these classes here are to ensure that we have a correct positioning, we have correct margin, and displaying every element inside the navbar correctly. So we can go ahead and get rid of the classes to see the uses of each one of them. So we are going to import the doc container, which is having this lengthy class names. And all what this is doing is to make sure we have the doc pinned at the bottom and it's having the correct display layout to display all the elements inside the doc, right? So what this doc is doing here is to wrap the actual content of the navbar, and it have a couple of properties like flex to display the doc content as a flex box, set a background color of the doc, and so many other CSS properties. So we are going to create this first part here, the home icon and also the blog icon, before we move to the social media icons and the toggle button here. So when we check on what we are building, we just have the home page here. There is nothing showing, you don't have the doc over here. So we are going to create this first part and render it over here. So from the data that we are getting from the resume component, we are going to loop through the navbar. So when we check the data, so now dot navbar. When we check the data, we can see we have a navbar array here which contains a link, an icon, and a label. So which constitute these first two parts, right? So we are looping through that inside the navbar. We have dot map, item, so we are going to create a doc icon. So we have a doc icon and we pass in a key, items.href, and this doc icon is going to have a tooltip. When we hover on this icon here, we see the tooltip to be name, this to be blog. So we are going to create that, wrap all the elements around the tooltip. So we have tooltip that we are getting from the tooltip component, and then we pass in a tooltip trigger as child. And we have a link which is having an href of item.href. When we check the navbar array, we have the href as an object in the navbar array. So we have the class name. So we are going to have cn Then we call the button variant, provide the following. We have the variant to be ghost and the size supposed to be icon. And then we pass in a size of 12. So inside the link, we are going to have item.icon. We have the class name, we have the size of 4. And then that will be it for the tooltip trigger. Then we create the tooltip content. So we have tooltip content. Then we pass in the paragraph that is having the item.label. So let's minimize this. So we have that. We can save this and move back to the localhost port 3000 to see what we have on the screen. So we don't have anything here yet, so we have to import the navbar inside the layout component. So back to the layout. So we are going to import the navbar over here. So we have navbar, give that a save. And we have the icons rendered. So this is a z-index issue. This is supposed to come on top of everything here. So let's add the rest of the elements and fix this later. So we have the home and the blog section. So back to the navbar. We are going to have a separator with orientation of vertical and a class name. We have height of full and py of 2. So we have the vertical separator here. So next, we are going to render the social media icons. So for the social media icons, we are going to have object.entries, data.contacts. .social. So we have a social array of objects. When we move to the data, scroll to the contacts, we can see we have social, which contains an object, right? So it's an object of objects. So that is the main reason why we are having the object.entries here, which is going to convert everything here into an array so that we'll be able to iterate over them. So we have .filter. So not everything that we will need from the contacts.social. So we want to filter a couple of items and then map through them. Then we have .map. So we have name and social. So we are going to return the doc icon. We have key, which is going to be the name. And we have tooltip. We have the tooltip trigger as child prop. Then we are going to have a link. So this is basically going to be the same as what we have here. So let me copy it starting from the tooltip trigger all the way up to tooltip content. So I will place everything here, paste it, and change a couple of things. So here is going to be social.url, and we change the item.label to name, and here we have social.icon. So that's basically going to be it for the social media links. So let's move back to localhost port 3000, and there we go, we have our social media links over here. So the final separator, then we have the toggle between the light mode and the dark mode button here. So we are going to add that. We are going to have a separator. So let's copy this one here. And then create the last part for the navbar. So we have a dock icon. So we have a tooltip, trigger, we have mode toggle, and then we have the tooltip content, which is going to be just theme. We save that. So we have an error here. We are supposed to have the separator in the dock within the dock component, right? So let's paste it here, move back, and everything is all right. So already we have the light mode and dark mode working perfectly fine. So next, we are going to add in the rest of the elements and fix this overlay here to make sure the navbar stands out like what we have in the production. Aside that, everything is working fine. So we are going to create our last and final piece for this project, which is going to be the home page. So back to page, right? We are going to clean everything here and start writing everything from scratch. So get rid of everything here. So on this main website, when I refresh this page, we have this fade in or blur fade effect when we refresh the page. So one more time, the fade and blur in effect. So this is going to be a component which we have to create, and we have the resume card which have an icon, title, subtitle, a date, and when this is clicked, it shows a description. So this is a resume card which is a component as well, and we can use the same resume card for the education section. And we have a skill badge, so this is also a component. We have a project card, so we have the image here or a GIF. We have the project title, the date, a description, tags, and a button. So this is also a component. And we have the hackathon, which is also a component. So what I am trying to say here is that everything we see on this project or on this page is a component. So we are going to create all these components and import them inside the page here, the home page file. So the first component we are going to start with is the resume card. Then we create the blur fade and the blur fade text component to render the first section of this page, right? So let's start with the resume card. So inside the component directory, I'm going to create a new file named resume-card.tsx. We will need an avatar over here. When we check the website, we have this icon here, which is an avatar, and a card component and a badge, because at the skills sections, we will be rendering the badge using this same component. So we have to create the badge as well, and then a card. Starting with the avatar component. So this one here. Inside the UI, we are going to create a new file and name it avatar.tsx. So we are going to import use client and import everything as React from React. Then we import everything as avatar primitive from Redis avatar. Then we import cn from lib-utils and create a constant for the avatar, which is going to have react.forwardRef to create the avatar component. So we have react.forwardRef, and inside this, we are going to create react.elementref. So we have type of, then we have avatar primitive dot root. Then we have react.component without ref, which is having a type of avatar primitive dot root. So we are going to have forward the class names and spread the rest of the props. We have a ref here. Then we call the avatar primitive.root. We pass the reference. Then we have this class name over here. So I'll copy that and paste it. So this is going to serve as a base style. So we have the flex box, and we have its fixed height, and we have a fixed height and width with rounded corners. And then we append any additional class names passed in via the class name prop. Then we spread in the rest of the props. So we have avatar.displayName here. As usual, this is going to help for debugging and better developer experience. So we have avatar primitive.root.displayName. So we are going to have avatar image and avatar fallback. So I'm going to paste those here and explain what the code does. So we have the avatar image here. So this is a component that uses the React forward ref. And over here we have the class name, avatar primitive image class name, and we spread the rest of the props onto the avatar primitive image component. Over here we set the display name to avatar image for debugging purposes, And we have similar functionality for the avatar fallback. So these classes here center the content with a circular shape and a muted background color. And we append any additional CSS classes. We spread the rest of the props onto the avatar primitive fallback component. And finally, we export avatar and avatar image. So we have avatar image fallback as well. So we have that. So next, let's create the badge component and then create the card component. So inside the UI, we are going to create a new file named badge.tsx. So this is going to be a simple component. We import everything from React. And import CVA type of variant props from the class variance authority. So this is similar to the button that we created. So the CVA here creates the variant base class name and the variant props here to help us properly type the props. So we have CN imported from libs utils. We create a badge variant, which is going to have the CVA function called, and the only thing that we are going to have here is this class. So you have this long ass class here, which I'm not going to type from scratch. So I'll just give a brief explanation. So we have inline flex to display the badge as an inline flex container, item center to vertically center the content inside the badge, and we have the rounded MD to give it a slightly rounded colors. We have borders to ensure the badge has a border, and PX, PY, transition colors, and the rest of the classes. So these are going to be the variants for this class or this badge component. So we have the default, the secondary, the destructive, which have its own unique classes depending on what we want. And we set the default variant to default. And then we defined an interface for the badge props that extends the standard HTML attribute for a div element. So I'll paste that here. And the variant props here also is to support the variant system we have defined using the CVA. So we have that. So we have a function for the badge. Which is having a class name, a variant, and we spread the rest of the props. We extend the badge props that we created up here, and we are going to return a div. So this div is going to have the class name, CN, we have badge variant, we pass the default, which is going to be variant, and we pass in the class names that the user will be adding. And within this component, we pass in the props. So this could be a paragraph or whatever that we want to render in this component. So over here, then we pass in the props. We spread these props, which is going to spread the remaining properties onto this div element, allowing us to further customize this component. So we have that. Can get rid of this and make it this way. So we have badge.displayName equals badge. So this is going to help us to debug the code correctly. And then we export badge and badge variants. So we have the badge component created. Next, we are going to create the card component inside the UI directory. So we create a new file and name it card.tsx. So I'll be pasting the card component here and explain the code line by line. So inside the component, we import everything from React because we'll be using the React API such as the forward ref, and then we have the CN we are importing from the utility functions. So this is going to help us conditionally concatenate class names, and we have the card element itself. So the card component is using the React.forwardRef here, which allows us to forward the ref to the underlying DOM element. And then the ref is forwarded to the div element. So we have a class name. The CN utility combines the base style with additional classes passed via the class name. And then we have the base style, which have the rounded large, which gives the card a rounded corners. And we have BG card, which sets the background color. And we have test card foreground, which sets the test color. And then any additional props passed to the card component are spread onto the div. We set the display name to card, which is going to help us debug the code. So we have the card header component, which is a wrapper for the card header section, typically containing the title and the description. So we have the base style here, which is flex and flex column, which ensures that the header content is stacked vertically. And we have the card title component, which is used for the card title, typically the heading of the card. So this ref here is forwarded to the A3 element, and we have our base styles here, and any additional classes passed via the class name are appended. Same for these props. Additional props for the card title component are spread onto the A3 element. So this element here. So this card description component is used for a brief description or subtitle in the card. The ref is forwarded down to the P element, and then additional props are passed to the card description are spread onto the P element. So like the on-click, type, and what have you. So the card content component is used to wrap the main contents of the card. We forward the refs to the div element and spread the props to the div element. The card footer component is used for the footer of the card, so typically containing the action buttons. Then we have the ref forwarded to the div element. We have the base styles, and we have additional props passed to the card footer as spread onto the div element. Then we export everything. So we export all the card related components. So we have the card components created, the badge, the avatar. So we can move back to the resume card and then import everything that we've created. So we are going to import use client and import avatar. Import avatar fallback, avatar image. We are going to import a badge from the badge component that we created. We are going to import the card component that we created. So a card and also a card header. And then we import CN. So we are going to import motion from Framer motion. We are going to import chevron right icon from Lucid React. We import link from React, Next.js instead, not React. and import React. So we are going to define the prop types for the resume card component. So we have interface, resume card props, we have the logo URL, which is going to be a string. We have alt text. We have alt text. So an alt text for the logo, which is going to be a string. We have a title. We have a subtitle. href. Badges. So they are going to be read only, and a string for optional array of badges. So we have a period, which is going to be a string, and we have a description, which is going to be a string. So for the href, this is going to be an optional URL. It's not required. So if you don't provide an href, you shouldn't get an error from TypeScript. So the subtitle is also going to be an optional, prop, and badges, the period and description are also going to be an optional prop. We save that. So the period is supposed to be required, not optional. So I'll get rid of the optional from the period prop. So we have a subtitle to be optional, href to be optional, badges to be optional, and description to be optional. So we are going to create the resume card by exporting const resume card. We have the logo URL to be a prop. We have alt text. So basically everything that we have here is supposed to be a prop. So I'll paste that and extend that as a resume card prop. So we have that. And we are going to create a state to track whether the description is expanded or not. So when we check the complete website, when I click on a description, it expands. When I click on it back, it goes away. So there is this toggle that shows a description when clicked, and also you can click on this icon to make it disappear. So this state is going to handle that. So I have a constant here, is expanded. We have set is expanded, which is going to be React use state, and the default value is going to be false. And we create a function to handle click event for the card. So we create a constant handle click, which is going to have an event, which is going to be React dot mouse event, and we are going to have an HTML anchor element and a mouse event. So we have that, and we are going to have a check here. If the description is provided, we want to prevent default link behavior and toggle the expanded state. So if description, you have e dot prevent default behavior, and set is expanded to what expanded is not. So if expanded is true, it's going to be set to false and vice versa. So we have that. So we are going to return a link. And this link is going to have href as usual, which we pass in the href that we are getting from the props. This props, and else we replace it with a hashtag, which means the link is not going to be triggered. And we have a class name, block, and cursor pointer. We have an onClick to handle the handle click function. Alright, so let's create or call the card component here. So we have card, and we are going to provide a class name of flex, and we create a div within this class component to wrap the entire content. So we have a class name of flex none, and when we check this resume card, we have the icon here, the avatar, we have this title and subtitle, and the date over here. So we are going to create that. So we have avatar, class name to be border, and we have size of 12. We have BJ muted background, and on a dark screen we want to have a background of foreground. Then we copy the avatar image and avatar fallback here. So this is going to contain the avatar image, and we have the fallback, alt text here. In case the image doesn't render, we call or display the fallback text. So we have that. Next, we are going to create the section for the card header, which is going to contain this title and subtitle and the rest of the elements. So we have this div here to group all the elements, and we are going to call the card header component to wrap the content. So we are going to create the main content area from card header. So I'm going to copy and paste the card header details. So this side here displays the title, this one here, and then we check if there is a badge available. If there is a badge, we are going to render the badges. So the one we are getting from the props. We render all the badges, and we have the chevron right icon here, which is this one. When we hover on this title here, it shows the chevron right icon. So we have that here. We have the period section here, which displays the period. So the next thing we are going to create here is to create a description section. So when the user click on this card, we have the description here. So I'll paste that. We have the description section here, which we are calling the motion from Freema motion, which shows a little bit animation. When I click on this, you see the fade effect over here. So we specify those properties inside the animate and the transition object. So that's why we have here. So the card component is complete. So there is one more thing left, which is to display the subtitle. So we forgot that. Right after the period, we have this div here. So before the card header div, we have to specify the subtitle. So I'm going to copy and paste that over here. And this is the subtitle for the resume card. This one over here, Bitcoin Protocol Engineer, Software Engineer. So with that created, everything inside the resume card is complete. So since we are done creating the resume card, the avatar components, badge, card, and also the mood toggle component, it's time to import everything inside the page and then, render the rest of the element. So we have import resume card from the resume card we created, and then, so remember I said we are going to create the blur fade and also the blur fade text effect. So when I refresh the page, there's this blur fade smooth animation over here. So let's create those components and move back to the page real quick. So inside the UI, we are going to create, so inside Magic UI folder, we are going to create two files. So the first one is going to be blurfade.tsx and the second one is going to be blurfade.text.tsx. So I'll be copying the blur fade component and explain it line by line. So we have the blur fade component here. We are importing the use client because this component should be rendered on the client side. And we are importing animate presence, motion, use in view, and variants from framer motion. So the animate present is used to handle the presence of animation when elements are added or removed. And we have the motion, which is the main component for animating elements. So the use in view is a hook that is going to determine if a component is within the viewport. And we have the variant, which is a TypeScript type for defining animation variants. So the use ref here is from React to reference to the DOM element. And we have the blur fade props over here. We have the children here, the content that will be wrapped and animated by blur fade components. We have the class name for optional class names, variant, direction, delay, Y offset, in view margin, and blur. So over here we set the default values for the props inside the blur fade component. So using the InView hook, we are going to return true if the element is within the viewport based on the specific margin. So the ones true here is to ensure that the animation triggers only the first time the element comes into view, right? And we have the default variant here. We have the hidden, which defines the default animation variant for the blur fading effect. So we have the visible variant here, which is the state where the elements have moved up slightly. So what this is doing here is if custom variant is provided, use it. Otherwise, use the default variant. And we wrap the animated content with animate present to handle the animation present in the DOM. So this ref is attached to the div element to track its visibility in the viewport. And we set the initial animation state to hidden. So over here, we animate to visible when the element is in view. Otherwise, we keep it hidden. And when the element is removed from the DOM, animate it back to the hidden state. So that's what this is doing here. So this one here, use the combined animation variant. We have the transition to add a slightly delay before starting the animation. So we set the animation duration, and then we use a smooth easing function for the animation. We apply any additional class names passed through the class props and render the child element inside the animated component. And finally, export the blur fade component as default export. So next, we are going to move to the blur fade test and create the component. So this is the blur fade test component, which is basically similar to the blur fade component. So we're importing the same thing that we imported from Framer Motion. So animate presence, motion, and variants. We have use memo. So we are importing the use memo hook from React to optimize the rendering of the test characters. And we have the props for the blur fade test. So the test is supposed to be string, class name string, the variants are numbers, and same for the rest of the props. Animated by character is a boolean because that is going to be either true or false. And within the component we have the default values that are going to be set if no values are provided, right? So during the heading state, the text is shifted down, transparent, and blurred. And during the visibility state, the text moves up slightly, becomes fully opaque, and loses the blur. So when we check it critically, we can see that, right? So it loses its blur as it turns visible. And we have this here, which combines the provided variant with the default ones. And this here splits the text into array of characters using the use memo hook to optimize the performance. And here we check if animated by character is true. If so, we animate each character individually. So that is what we are having here. And if animated by character is false, we animate the entire text as a whole. So we have that over here, which I said is very similar to the blur fade effect. So that will be it for the blur fade test. We close those ones and back to the home page. So we are going to call the blur fade from the Magic UI blur fade component and the blur fade test from the blur fade test. So we have those imported. We are going to import the data from the resume. So we have data from resume, and we import link from React, from Next.js, not React, and we import markdown from React markdown. So we are going to create a constant to hold the blur fade delay. So we have blur fade delay and set it to 0.04 seconds, which is equivalent to 40 milliseconds. So the delay or the fade takes place within 40 milliseconds. So if you want it to take more time, you can increase the blur fade delay to maybe 50 or 0.09 to hold on the delay for a long time. So we have export default, and we have a function which is going to be the page. Over here we are going to return a div, a main section or a main container. So the main container is going to use flexbox to arrange each children in a vertical column. So we have a flex call that's supposed to be inside the class name. So flex call Mean height, we provide 100 dvh. So this 100 dvh ensures it takes up at least the full height of the viewport. And we have space y to be 10. So we are going to create a hero section at the top of the page, which is going to be used as an introductory greetings. So we have a section, and we have ID of hero. Then we create a div, which is going to, it's a centered container for the hero section with a max width of 2SL. So we give it a class name, mxauto, with full max width 2SL. Space y8. Then we create a div here, which is going to be a flex container that arranges the intro text and avatar side by side. So we have a class name, a gap of 2, flex, justify between. When we create a div to contain the introduction text organized in a vertical column, and we add a flex direction of 1 to allow it to take up the remaining space in the row. So we have a class name, flex, call, flex, flex1, space y to be 1.5. So we are going to create our first blur fade text, which is going to contain the greetings. So this one here, hi, I'm John, with this wavy emoji here, which says, hi, John. So back to the page, I'll paste that, and we have, so let's check the localhost port 3000. And there we go, we have it. We have the hi, I'm John with this wavy emoji here. So we are getting the name from data.name, and we are splitting the name into 2 to extract the first name. So that's what we have here. And this is the wavy icon or emoji. So next, we are going to create another animated text element for the description below the greetings. So we have this here, blur fade text. I'll give that a save, move back, and there we go, we have the greetings, which is coming from the data.description, the one we created in the resume page. Alright, so things are beginning to take shape. So we move out from this div here to the div to justify between this text and the icon that we are about to create. So when we move back from this div into this div here, we are going to call a blur fade. So this is not a blur fade text. Note the difference. So this is a blur fade. We only apply the blur fade text to text element. So this can be a component. So the blur fade is for images and other components, right? So we have the blur fade. And we specify the delay to be the default blur fade delay. Then we call the avatar. So remember, we created an avatar component. So we call the avatar component. And we have a class name for the avatar, size of 28. And then we have a border. Then we create avatar image. So this avatar is supposed to come from the component we created, not Radis UI avatar. So we have that, and the avatar image is going to have an alt. So the alt, we are getting the alt from data.name and the directory, and the image source is going to be data.avatar_url. And then we have avatar fallback, which is going to be data.initials. So when the image fails to load, we want to provide the initials to be the fallback. So that will be it. And when we move back to localhost, we have the image over here. So this image can be changed to the resume page. We have the avatar URL, which is referencing from the public directory. So to change this image, we just have to change the image name. So we upload the image here and change the name over here. So back to page.tsx, we have the greetings set up nice and correctly. So the next section is going to be the about. So this one here, and I am going to paste that section too as well. So the about section is very simple. We have the fade, the blur fade. So the about section is very simple. We have the fade, the blur fade, which contains the text about, and we have the summary from the resume data. This one here, the summary from resume data. That is why we have the markdown component here to convert the markdown to JSX for React to display it correctly. So let's move back to localhost port 3000, and there we go. We have the greetings and the about section. So everything is working fine. Next, we are going to create the work experience and education experience with the skills as well. So I'll copy and paste that over here and give this a save. So let's move back to localhost port 3000. So there we have it. We have the work experience, and that is also working fine. So what we are doing here is we have the work experience as a title. So we have Egg2 work experience. We provide the blur fade to it. And here we are just looping through the work object of arrays that we have here. So work, when we scroll down, we have work, which contains array of objects. So we loop through that and render the resume card and provide all the information that the resume card needs so that we'll be able to render this work experience. So next, we are going to create the education section. So this one here. The education section is very similar to the work experience section, basically the same. So I'll paste that over here. Then we loop through the education data. We provide a blur fade to the resume card, and that will be it for the education section. Basically same as what we have here. So we save that and move back to localhost port 3000. And there we go, we have the education section. So back to the page component. So we have to work on these skill cards here. So we have these skill badges here. We have to work on that and then move to the project section. So we are going to copy this. So it says badge is not defined. So we have to call the badge component. We have already created the badge, remember that. So I just have to call the badge component over here, save that, and move back to localhost port 3000. There we have it. So we have the skill section rendered beautifully. So next, we are going to work on the project section. So back to this page. So before we start working on the project section, we have to create a component for that. So we have this card that shows an image or a GIF with a title, a period, a description, a tags, and a link. And then finally create the last component, which is going to handle the hackathons. So inside the component, we are going to create a new file named project card.jsx. No, let's rename this to TypeScript, so TSX. So I'll copy the code here and explain it line by line. So this is the project card, and we import the badge from the UI badge component that we created. We import everything from the card component as well. We have the cn utility function here to manage conditional class names. We import image from Next. We import link from Next and Markdown from React Markdown. So these are the props for the project card component, and some of them are optional. So the one with question mark before this column here are optional props. So we have them over here, and we create the project card component with the following props. So over here, we call the card component that we created to be the main container for the project or for the section. And we have a link here. So the link is wrapping the image or video of the project. When we check this project section, we can see this can be an image or a video. So that is what we are doing over here. If it's a video, we render a video, and if it's an image, we render an image within this link here. And we have the card header, which is having the card title, and we have the date, right? The date component, and we have the description, which is a markdown. So we have to wrap it around the markdown component and then render the descriptions. So that is the card header, and we have the card content, which is everything here. So it could be a tags like this one here. It could be badges like what we have here, displaying the technologies that was used to build this project. So we render those ones here, and that will be it for the card content. And the card footer is going to be a link. So a link to the website or a link to the source code. So that's basically what we have in the card component. So we give that a save and move back to the page component. So I'll copy the project section and paste it over here. So we have the project section over here. So we have the project, my project, check my latest work, so which is just this one here, and we have the descriptions. So those are the ones that are contained in the first div, and the second div contains the project card. So we have to call the project card, and it's having a blur fade effect wrapped around the project card. So we are getting all the projects from the data. So when we check the data, we have projects, which is also array of objects, right? and we are rendering that using the map function to loop through all the projects and render the specific information that is needed from the project card. And that is basically it. So when we check the localhost port 3000, we should see all the projects. So there we go, we have all the projects. Finally, let's create the hackathon card and import that as well. So inside the component, we are going to create a file named hackathon card.tsx. So this is the hackathon card component. We are importing the avatar from the avatar we created, the avatar component. We have the badge imported from badge component and link from Next.js. We define our props. We create the hackathon function to have 8 props. And then when we check the hackathon, we have these icons here, right? We have these icons here. So these are going to be the avatar we imported. And we have this line here, a vertical line that links all the events together. So we have the date, which contains this date here. We have the location, and then we have a description, right? So this div is responsible for that, for the date, the title and description, location and description. And the avatar here, div here, is responsible for rendering this one. When we scroll down, we have a links div here, which is going to be responsible for displaying all these links, right? So that will be it for the hackathon card, and we can import it in the page component. So I'll copy that section and paste it here and call the hackathon card. So this looks very similar to the project that we have, the project component. So we have the section that displays information about the hackathon, the title, and a description, right? And at this section, we are rendering all the data from the resume data, looping through the hackathons and rendering them inside this hackathon card component. So we have the blur fade component wrapped around it as usual, and back to localhost port 3000. There we go, we have the hackathons available. So the last section we are going to create is going to be the contact, the get in touch section. So this part over here. So we are going to create this, and then that will be it for the whole portfolio. So back to the page component. So I'll paste the section here, and that will be it. So we have all the divs wrapped around a blur fade component, and we have the contact. So when I save this, refresh the page, and we have the get in touch section. So this part, this div here is responsible for this. This h2 is responsible for this, and this paragraph is responsible for this. So that being said, we are done with the whole portfolio application. So let's refresh it and give it a quick tour one more time. So upon refresh, we have this fade in effect, this cool fading effect. So we have the greeting section and the avatar of the developer here, the about section, the work experience, which when we click gives us a little bit description about the work. From the work experience, we move back to education and then we move to skills. So from skills, we have the My Project section, which contains the latest work being done by the developer. So we have the card rendered beautifully, and when you hover on it, we have the shadow, and we have the badges that displays the technologies that were used to create this project. And we have the hackathon section, which displays all the hackathons the developer has participated in. And a call to action section, get in touch. And we have the dock here or the navigation here. When we click on this icon, it shows us the dark mode. And this brings us to the end of this tutorials. And if this is your first time watching my tutorials, kindly consider subscribing. Keep on building amazing projects and see you in the next one.